The first shot came at 2047 hours. Petty Officer Carter never heard it. The subsonic round punched through the weak point in his helmet where the mount met the shell. He dropped instantly, his night vision goggles clattering against the rocks. The sound of his body hitting the ground was the only warning the rest of the SEAL team had before the mountain valley exploded into chaos. Chief Daniel Cross hit the dirt as a second round cracked past his head, missing by inches. 52 years old, 34 years in the Navy combat tours, stretching from Desert Storm to this God-forsaken Afghan valley, and Cross had never felt this naked, this exposed, this hunted. "Sniper multiple positions," he screamed into his radio, pressing himself against a boulder that suddenly felt far too small. His team scattered into whatever cover they could find. 7 SEALs, all of them, veterans, all of them, realizing in the same terrible moment that they'd walked into a perfectly prepared kill zone. Another shot. Petty Officer Morrison screamed as the round shattered his leg below the knee. He went down hard, his rifle skittering away across the rocks. Then a third. Corporal Jensen took it in the shoulder, spinning him like a rag doll before he collapsed. "Skywatch, this is Alpha Team." Cross fought to keep his voice steady even as his world tilted sideways. "We're pinned down by multiple snipers with thermal capabilities. 3 down, 1 KIA. Need immediate support." The radio crackled with static before the response came, and Cross's heart sank even before he heard the words. "Alpha Team, nearest air support is 40 minutes out. Ground reinforcements are 60 minutes. Can you hold position?" Cross looked at his remaining operators. All of them pressed flat against rocks and ridges, trying to make themselves smaller targets, trying to become invisible to enemies who could see their heat signatures glowing like beacons in the darkness. The Afghan night was moonless. Heavy cloud cover blocked even the stars. For anyone without night vision, the darkness was absolute. But the enemy didn't need starlight. They had thermal optics, could see body heat, could see the warm signature of flesh and blood against the cool mountain rocks. Another shot impacted 6 inches from Cross's face. Rock fragments drew blood across his cheek. He tasted copper and dust. "Negative Skywatch." The words felt like admitting defeat. "We've got maybe 10 minutes before they pick us all off. These snipers own the night." 10 minutes, maybe less. Carter was already dead. 3 more wounded. The enemy was methodical, professional, taking their time, picking them apart one shot at a time. Cross had fought in Desert Storm when he was 20 years old, had been in Mogadishu during Black Hawk Down, Afghanistan, Iraq. 4 decades of combat experience, and he'd never felt this helpless. You couldn't fight what you couldn't see. Couldn't locate enemies who could watch you die in perfect thermal clarity while you fumbled blind in the darkness. This was how it ended. Not in a blaze of glory, just 7 men dying slowly in a valley nobody back home could pronounce, killed by an enemy they never saw coming. That's when the voice cut through the radio, calm, steady, like someone ordering coffee. "Alpha Team, this is Overwatch. I can hunt them." Cross keyed his radio with shaking hands. "Who the hell is this? We need actual support, not Chief." The voice was female, young, and carried an absolute certainty that made Cross pause. "I'm 300 meters northwest of your position. I've been tracking enemy movement for the past hour. I count 10 snipers in a coordinated kill zone. They're using AN Pass 13 thermal weapon sights. I can eliminate them, but I need you to trust me and stay down." "You're one person." Cross heard another SEAL scream as a round found flesh. "We need a platoon air support, something that can—" "Chief, you're out of time." The voice didn't rise, didn't waver. "I'm moving now. Keep your IR strobes off and don't shoot at muzzle flashes. You'll give away your positions. I've got this." Cross looked at his team, 4 casualties in less than 3 minutes. The math was simple and brutal. At this rate, they'd all be dead in 10 minutes. He had no choice. "Copy Overwatch." He took a breath. "The night is yours." What Chief Daniel Cross didn't know, what nobody in that valley knew except the woman moving through the darkness. 300 meters northwest was that Staff Sergeant Maya Reeves had been preparing for this moment for 7 years. Every shot she would take tonight, every elimination, every tactic, all of it traced back to a single phone call on a September morning in 2016 when she'd learned her brother was dead. 41 years ago, in the winter of 1983, A young Marine corporal named William Patterson crouched in the frozen darkness along the West German border and learned that death had a thermal signature. The Cold War was at its peak. Reagan in the White House, Soviet tanks lined up across the Fulda Gap. The entire world balanced on a nuclear knife's edge, and young men like Patterson stood on the front lines of that invisible war. He was 25 years old, fresh-faced despite 3 years in force reconnaissance. Still believed in right and wrong, good guys and bad guys, the clarity of purpose that made you join the Marines in the first place. The Soviet Spetsnaz operative he was hunting had no such illusions. Patterson had been tracking the man for 6 days, through frozen forests, across mountain ridges, through villages where everyone had learned to look the other way when shadows moved at night. The Spetsnaz was good, maybe the best Patterson had ever hunted. He'd eliminated 4 NATO personnel in 3 weeks. Slip in, one shot, vanish like smoke. But on the 6th night, Patterson caught him. The Soviet was using one of the new thermal scopes, cutting-edge technology that let him see body heat in total darkness. Made him confident. Made him think the night belonged to him. Patterson killed him from 400 meters with iron sights and starlight because sometimes old skills beat new technology, and the Soviet never saw it coming. That was the night William Patterson earned his call sign, Ghost. Over the next 7 years, Patterson hunted Spetsnaz operatives across Western Europe, West Berlin, Prague, the Fulda Gap, places where the Cold War burned hot even if the bullets were quiet. He became a legend, the Marine sniper the Soviets couldn't catch, couldn't kill, could barely track. 153 confirmed kills over his career, most of them at night. Most of them against enemies who thought thermal optics made them invincible. Patterson proved them wrong, one shot at a time. In 1980, at an abandoned Soviet listening post in the mountains near the East German border, Patterson finally met his match, a Soviet Spetsnaz colonel named Viktor Konstantin, 30 years old, 200 confirmed kills. The best night operative the Red Army had ever produced. They'd been hunting each other for months. That night, they both arrived at the same location. Both had the same mission, eliminate the other. They faced each other on the roof of the listening post. 2 snipers, 2 rifles, 2 men who understood that only one would walk away. They fired simultaneously. Both missed. It was the only miss in either man's entire career. The only time Ghost Patterson failed to kill his target. The only time Viktor Konstantin's bullet went wide. They stared at each other across 30 meters of darkness. Then Konstantin smiled, gave a small salute, disappeared into the night. Patterson never saw him again. Not in Berlin when the wall came down. Not when the Soviet Union collapsed. Konstantin vanished like he'd never existed, and Patterson spent the next 20 years wondering if he'd imagined the whole thing. He retired in 2010, 52 years old, 30 years of service, a chest full of medals nobody could ask him about, and a head full of memories he couldn't talk about even if they did. Then came the diagnosis: lung cancer, terminal, chemical exposure from operations that officially never happened in countries the Marines officially never visited. 6 months, maybe a year. That's what the doctor said. Patterson bought a small house near Fort Bragg and waited to die. That was the plan anyway until a young Army private showed up on his doorstep in September 2016 with rage in her eyes and a photograph in her hands. Her name was Maya Reeves, 25 years old, skinny, determined, eyes that wouldn't look away. The photograph showed a man in Army dress uniform, older than Maya by a few years. Same cheekbones, same stubborn jaw. His name was Thomas, she said, Captain Thomas Reeves, my brother. He died 3 weeks ago in Afghanistan. Sniper attack. 10 Taliban with thermal scopes in the mountains. Killed him and 4 Rangers in the middle of the night. Her voice didn't shake, didn't break, just stated facts like she was filing a report. They said there was nothing he could do. Said you can't fight snipers at night when they have thermal optics, and you don't. Said it was just bad luck. Patterson stood in his doorway and said nothing. I found your name in classified reports, Maya continued. Spent 2 months digging through everything I could access. Everything I couldn't access, I accessed anyway. Court-martial me later. Right now, I need to know if it's true. Did you really kill 47 Soviet Spetsnaz operatives at night when they had thermal scopes and you didn't? Patterson looked at this young woman who'd just lost her brother, who'd committed felonies to find his name, who'd tracked him down like prey, who had the same look in her eyes he'd seen in the mirror 40 years ago when he'd decided to become a hunter. 47 confirmed, he said. Actual numbers higher. Some operations don't exist on paper. Teach me. Not a request, a demand. Teach me everything. Teach me how to hunt at night. Teach me how to kill snipers who think darkness protects them. Teach me so no one else's brother dies thinking the enemy owns the night. Patterson was 58 years old, dying, tired, ready to fade away. But this girl, this fierce, angry, determined girl, reminded him of someone, reminded him of himself at 25. I'll train you, he said, 6 months, every night. I'll teach you everything I learned hunting the best night operatives the Soviets ever produced. But you need to understand something first. Maya met his eyes. This isn't about revenge, Patterson said. Revenge makes you sloppy, makes you emotional, gets you killed. You want to honor your brother. Don't hunt for revenge. Hunt to protect. Become the predator they fear. Make the night belong to the people trying to do good in this world instead of the people trying to do harm. Can you do that? Maya's jaw tightened. Yes, sir. Then tomorrow night we start. Bring a notebook. You're going to need it. For the next 6 months, Patterson poured everything he knew into Maya Reeves. Every night they trained. Started with the basics. How to move in darkness. How to read wind at night when you can't see the flags. How to calculate for temperature drop. How to account for altitude and humidity and barometric pressure. Then the advanced skills. How to spot thermal signatures. How to mask your own heat signature. How to detect electromagnetic emissions from enemy night vision. How to use geometry and patience to thread bullets through impossible angles. Patterson taught her about weapons, the SR-25 rifle, 7.62 by 51 millimeter NATO rounds. Effective range 800 meters in daylight, 600 at night. With subsonic ammunition 175 grain Sierra Match King bullets at 1,050 feet per second, you could stretch that to 700 if you understood ballistics like a mathematician and read wind like a prophet. He taught her about optics, the AN-PVS-31 binocular night vision goggles, Generation 3+ white phosphor tubes, 40-degree field of view, and the cutting-edge technology Maya had requisitioned through channels. Patterson taught her how to access experimental DARPA fusion optics that combine thermal imaging with image enhancement. See what the enemy sees. See more than the enemy sees. Most importantly, Patterson taught her patience. The enemy thinks technology makes them superior, he said one night, watching Maya calculate a 600-meter shot in pitch darkness. Thermal scopes, night vision, encrypted communications. They think those tools make them invincible. They're wrong. Tools are just tools. It's the person using them that matters. And every tool has a weakness. Every advantage creates a vulnerability. Your job is to find those vulnerabilities and exploit them. 6 months of training, every night, Patterson pushing her harder than any instructor she'd ever had, making her take 1,000-meter shots in total darkness, making her hit thermal signatures the size of a man's fist, making her move through forests without triggering a single motion sensor. Some nights she wanted to quit, wanted to scream, wanted to tell this dying old man that what he was asking was impossible. But then she'd remember Thomas. Remember the letter he'd sent her a week before he died? The enemy owns the night here, Maya. We can't see them, can't fight them, can't win. So she didn't quit. She learned. She adapted. She became what Patterson was teaching her to be. A ghost, a hunter, a guardian of the night. When she shipped out for her first deployment in 2017, Patterson gave her a gift. His original rifle scope from 1980, battered, scarred, but still functional. Carried this through 15 years of hunting, he said. Constantine never saw me through this glass. Neither will anyone else who tries to kill Americans in the dark. Mount it on your rifle. Let them see it before they die. Let them know the night doesn't belong to them anymore. Maya served 3 tours in Afghanistan, 6 years, 207 confirmed kills, 80% of them at night, 0 friendly casualties during any operation where she provided overwatch. She became a legend, the Ghost's apprentice, the woman who hunted in darkness like she was born to it. And through it all, even as the cancer ate away at Patterson's lungs, even as he grew weaker and thinner and closer to death, he tracked her career. Read every after-action report, watched her become everything he'd trained her to be. When the intelligence came through about a 10-man enemy sniper cell operating in the mountains coordinating thermal optics to create overlapping kill zones, Maya called Patterson first. "This is it," she said. "This is what you trained me for." Patterson was 65 years old, down to 130 pounds. 6 months to live, maybe less. But his voice was steady. "Show them, Maya. Show them what a ghost can do." Now in the Afghan darkness, Maya moved like water through the rocks. Chief Cross and his team were pinned 300 meters southeast. 10 enemy snipers in prepared positions on the surrounding ridges. All of them with thermal optics. All of them professional. All of them thinking the night and their technology made them invincible. Maya's SR-25 rifle weighed 8 pounds. The Surefire suppressor added another pound and a half. Her night vision rig another 3 pounds. She carried 160 rounds of subsonic ammunition, each one loaded by Patterson himself 5 years ago. Save them for this, for her. The rifle scope was a Night Force ATCR, 7 to 35 power magnification. But mounted above it in a quick-release bracket, Patterson's original 1983 Marine scope. Battered steel, scratched glass, a relic from another war. She settled into her first firing position. 430 meters northeast of her location, an enemy sniper lay prone behind a cluster of rocks. Perfect position, good cover, clear field of fire down into the valley where Cross's team huddled. Through Maya's fusion optics, the enemy glowed. His thermal scope created a faint heat signature. His body, even pressed against cold rocks, radiated warmth that her equipment could detect. He was scanning the valley, searching for targets, confident in his position, confident in his technology, confident in the darkness. He never thought to look behind him. Maya checked the wind. 8 miles per hour left to right. Temperature 62 degrees. Humidity 40%. Altitude 7,000 feet. The calculations ran through her head like muscle memory. Patterson's voice in her mind. Windage 0.7 mils. Elevation 4.2 mils. Subsonic flight time 1.1 seconds. Aim small, miss small. Breathe. Squeeze. Follow through. The suppressed rifle coughed. 125 decibels. Quiet enough to dissipate in the mountain air. Quiet enough that the sound gave no directional information. Just a crack in the darkness that could have come from anywhere. Through her scope, Maya watched the enemy sniper's thermal signature go limp. He never moved again. She was relocating before his body temperature even started to drop. First rule of night sniping, never shoot twice from the same position. They can't see you, but they can triangulate sound if you're careless. 25 meters east, new position, new angle. Same mission. Target 2 was 520 meters south. Using a Russian-made OSV-96, 12.7 millimeter anti-material rifle. Big, loud, devastating. He was firing on Cross's position, the muzzle flash visible even through his suppressor. Maya waited, watched him through her optics, watched him work the bolt, chamber another massive round, press his eye to his thermal scope. He fired. The recoil rocked him back slightly. His attention was focused down into the valley. Focused on killing, never thinking about dying. Maya's subsonic round took 1.2 seconds to cross the distance. The enemy sniper was working his bolt for another shot when the bullet arrived. Took him at the base of the skull. Instant shutdown of the central nervous system. His thermal signature collapsed. The big rifle clattered against rocks. 2 down, 8 to go. Cross's voice crackled on the radio. "Overwatch, we saw that muzzle flash go dark. What's your status?" 2 eliminated, Chief. 8 remaining. Keep your heads down." Targets 3 and 4 were working as a team, 345 meters west. 1 shooter with an Accuracy International AX338. 1 spotter with thermal binoculars. Smart tactics, professional positioning, made them more effective, also made them harder to eliminate. But Maya had been trained by a man who'd fought 2-man Soviet Spetsnaz cells for 7 years. Patterson's voice in her memory. "Kill the spotter first. He's the one who might see you. The shooter's attention is downrange. The spotter was scanning the ridges with thermal binos, searching for threats, doing his job well, just not well enough. Maya's shot was 355 meters at a 12-degree downward angle, had to compensate for the geometry. Bullet drop at that angle was 14.3 inches, windage 0.5 mils right. She fired. The spotter's thermal signature went dark instantly. The shooter reacted, turned to his partner, realized something was wrong, reached out to shake him. That moment of distraction was all Maya needed. 3 seconds after the first shot, she fired again. Same hold. Minor adjustment for the new target's position. The shooter collapsed across his partner's body. 4 down, 6 to go. In the valley below, Chief Cross was watching his SEALs, watching them huddle in cover, watching them realize that the enemy fire had stopped, that someone out there in the darkness was hunting the hunters. Overwatch, he radioed. Status, 4 enemy snipers eliminated. Maya's voice was steady, professional, like she was reporting weather. 6 remaining. Stay in position. This is going to take a few more minutes. Cross looked at Petty Officer Ryan Hayes, 29 years old, 8 years in the teams, combat veteran of Afghanistan and Iraq. Hayes was staring out into the darkness with something like awe. Chief, Hayes whispered. Who is she? Cross shook his head. He'd fought in Desert Storm, Somalia, 2 decades of Afghanistan and Iraq. He'd worked with Delta Force operators, DevGru SEALs, Special Forces legend after legend. He'd never seen anything like this. I don't know, Cross said, but whoever she is, she's saving our lives. Target 5 was the hardest yet, 680 meters east, positioned in a cave entrance that gave him almost complete cover. Only his rifle barrel and the faint thermal bloom of his scope lens were visible from Maya's position. It was an extreme shot, small target, long range, variable mountain winds. Most snipers wouldn't attempt it, but Maya's hands didn't shake. Her breathing didn't quicken, because this wasn't just a target. This was a promise she'd made 7 years ago. Patterson's voice came through on her encrypted satellite phone. He was monitoring from 10,000 miles away, dying in a hospital room at Fort Bragg. But his voice was clear. Maya, that cave position, check your tablet, grid reference Delta 7. She pulled up the file he'd transmitted, classified intelligence from 2016. Her blood went cold. That cave, that exact position, that was where Thomas had died. Her brother had been pinned down by snipers in this valley 7 years ago. He'd called for fire support, waited for help that came too late, died in the darkness wondering why the night belonged to the enemy. Thomas called me 2 hours before his last mission, Patterson said quietly. Asked about hunting Soviet-style snipers at night. I gave him what advice I could remotely. It wasn't enough. He didn't have the training you have. A pause. A breath that rattled with fluid and cancer. Don't let his death be meaningless, Maya. Make this shot. Make it for him. Make it for everyone who died thinking the night couldn't be won. Maya's jaw tightened. She positioned herself, calculated every variable. Wind at this range would drift the bullet 22 inches. Drop would be 180 inches. She had to aim 6 inches behind where the thermal bloom indicated the enemy's head would be. The angle was extreme. The target was minimal. The shot was nearly impossible. She took it anyway. This one's for you, Thomas, she whispered. The subsonic round flew through mountain air for 1.8 seconds. A tiny piece of lead threading through darkness. Finding its target through mathematics and skill, and 7 years of grief transformed into purpose. The thermal bloom suddenly tilted, fell sideways. The enemy sniper collapsed inside his cave, never knowing what killed him. 5 down. Patterson's voice crackled over the phone, pride thick in his words despite the cancer eating his lungs. That's my girl. Thomas would be proud. Maya was already moving to her next position. No time for grief, no time for relief. 5 more targets, 5 more threats to eliminate. Target 6 made a fatal mistake. He used his radio. The electromagnetic signature lit up on Maya's detection equipment like a flare. 295 meters north, concealed in thick brush where his thermal signature blended with ambient heat. Invisible to most sensors, but the EM spike from his radio transmission gave him away. Triangulated his exact position, Maya fired into the vegetation, aimed at the center of that electromagnetic pulse. The brush rustled, shifted. A body fell. An SVD rifle clattered against rocks. 6 down. Targets 7 and 8 panicked. Both broke position simultaneously. Started running, trying to relocate to better cover. Fatal mistake. Movement created clear thermal signatures against the cool rocks. Heat blooms moving across cooler backgrounds. Might as well have been carrying spotlights. Target 7 was running north-northeast, 380 meters and opening. Maya led him by 2.1 meters, accounted for his speed and the bullet's flight time. Fired. The running figure collapsed mid-stride, tumbled down the slope. Target 8 had reached new cover, a boulder at 410 meters. Thought he was safe, but his thermal signature was partially visible around the edge of the rock. 8 inches of exposure. Just enough. Maya threaded the needle. The round passed through the gap between rocks. Found flesh. The thermal signature disappeared. 8 down. 2 remaining. The last 2 enemy snipers had gone completely dark. Thermal scopes off. No movement. No emissions. Making themselves as small and cold as possible. They knew they were being hunted by someone with superior capabilities. Their only hope was to hide. Wait. Hope she couldn't find them. But Maya had been tracking these snipers for 3 days. Knew their positions. Knew their patterns. Knew where they'd retreat when they went to ground. Target 9 was 580 meters southeast, in a narrow crevice in the rocks that provided perfect thermal protection. The rocks masked his heat signature completely. He was invisible to thermal imaging, invisible to most detection methods. But Maya had watched him prepare this exact position 48 hours ago, knew precisely where a prone sniper would lie for optimal firing angle. Knew the geometry of that crevice like she'd carved it herself. She fired into the darkness, at a target she couldn't see, aiming at where experience and observation told her he had to be. For a long moment, nothing happened. Just darkness and silence, and the cold mountain wind. Then a thermal bloom appeared, the heat of fresh blood, 98.6 degrees warming cold rocks, a body's final thermal signature. 9 down. The last enemy sniper was the best of them, completely still for 14 minutes. No movement, no emissions, no tells, just patience and discipline in the desperate hope that he could outlast the hunter. But everyone makes mistakes eventually. Everyone's body betrays them in the end. After 14 minutes, he shifted his weight, microscopic movement, just enough to ease cramped muscles, just enough to press his body against rock in a new position. Created a brief thermal differential, 0.2 degrees Fahrenheit, visible for 2.8 seconds. Maya saw it, marked the position, calculated where a prone sniper would be relative to that thermal flash. Fired. For a moment, nothing. Just the wind, just the darkness, just the weight of the entire operation hanging on this last shot. Then Cross's voice on the radio, Overwatch, we've got thermal bloom appearing 580 meters east-southeast. No movement. Targets down. Maya allowed herself one breath. Just one. Then keyed her radio. Alpha team, this is Overwatch. All 10 enemy snipers eliminated. You're clear to move. I'm coming to you. In the valley, 7 SEALs slowly emerged from cover. Stunned, disbelieving, alive. Chief Cross stood up, looked out into the darkness where their guardian angel had been operating, where one person had eliminated 10 professional snipers in 4 hours of darkness, where someone had done the impossible and made it look routine. Overwatch, what's your position? We need to link up. 3 minutes, Chief. Stay where you are. Maya moved down from the ridges. Her night vision showed her the terrain in perfect clarity. She'd been operating in this darkness for 4 hours, moving between positions, taking shots that most snipers would consider impossible, doing what Patterson had trained her to do. When she reached the valley floor, the SEALs were still in a defensive posture, still processing what had just happened, still trying to understand how they were alive. Chief Cross stood as Maya approached. Even in darkness, even through night vision, she could see the shock on his face. She was 32 years old, average height, Lean build from years of mountain operations. Covered in ghillie netting. Carrying a rifle that looked more like a work of art than a weapon. Equipment that seemed straight out of science fiction. Staff Sergeant Maya Reeves, she said, extending her hand. Sorry I couldn't warn you before you walked into the ambush, Chief. Command channels were backed up. Cross shook her hand. His grip was firm, steady, but she could feel the slight tremor, the adrenaline still working through his system. Sergeant, he paused, seemed to be choosing his words carefully. I've been in this business since Desert Storm. Fought in Somalia. 20 years of Afghanistan and Iraq. What you just did, he shook his head. I've never witnessed anything like it. 10 enemy snipers, 4 hours, total darkness. 0 friendly casualties under your watch. I had a good teacher, sir. Maya patted her rifle. Best night warrior the Marines ever produced. She unclipped something from her vest, a worn photograph in a protective sleeve, handed it to Cross. The picture showed a young Marine, 25 maybe, holding a Soviet SVD rifle like a trophy, standing in snow along what looked like the German border. On the bow were written in faded ink, CPL W. Patterson, 1983 Fulda Gap. Cross stared at the photo. His expression changed. Recognition. Respect. Something like awe. Ghost Patterson. His voice was quiet. I heard stories about him when I was a boot ensign in '89. Cold War Marines talked about him like he was supernatural. The legend who hunted Spetsnaz across Europe. He looked up at Maya. He trained you. 6 months, every night, everything he learned hunting Soviet night operatives for 15 years. Ryan Hayes approached. The young SEAL was carrying a tactical notebook, taking notes like a college student. Ma'am, Hayes said, that shot through the cave opening at 680 meters. How did you calculate for the wind drift through the mountain pass? And Maya, because Patterson had taught her to always pass knowledge forward, told him, explained the mathematics, the geometry, the patience, all of it. Because that's what Guardians do. They don't just hunt, they teach. They pass the legacy forward. Cross organized his team. 3 wounded but stable. 1 dead. Petty Officer Carter had never had a chance. Maya looked at Carter's body and felt a familiar weight. Almost too late. If command had listened to her intelligence reports 3 days ago. If the bureaucracy hadn't delayed her warnings. If. But dwelling on the ifs didn't bring Carter back. Didn't change anything except to make the next operation more urgent. Chief, I need to verify the eliminations, Maya said. Make sure all 10 are confirmed dead and collect intelligence from their positions. Can your team assist? We'll split into teams and check each position, Cross said. But I'm coming with you to the first one. I need to see this for myself. They moved through the darkness to the nearest enemy position, the one 430 meters northeast. When they reached it, Cross used his night vision to examine the scene. The enemy sniper was exactly where Maya had said, dead from a single headshot. His thermal scope still in position, still faintly warm from recent use. Professional setup. Good cover. Excellent field of fire. Prepared fallback routes. This wasn't an amateur. This was someone with serious military training. You made this shot from where? Cross asked. 380 meters. Ridge on the opposite side of the valley. He never knew I was there. Cross studied the body, the positioning, the equipment. This man was trained. Look at his setup. Former Spetsnaz, maybe GRU. Probably fought in Chechnya, Georgia, maybe Ukraine before coming here. This isn't Taliban insurgent. This is professional soldier. They were all professional, Maya said. All 10. Coordinated tactics, military discipline. Someone trained them well. They moved to verify the other positions. Each one the same. Professional positioning, good equipment, military precision. All of them dead from single shots in total darkness. Cross's respect grew with each position they verified. By the time they'd confirmed all 10 kills, he understood what he'd witnessed. Not just skill, not just training, but something more. Something that separated legends from everyone else. After they'd verified the last position, Ryan Hayes found something. A waterproof document case hidden beneath rocks near the 10th sniper's body. Chief, you need to see this. Inside the case, photographs, intelligence reports, all in Russian with English translations. all focused on one target. Maya's face stared up from a dozen surveillance photos. Different locations, different operations. Someone had been tracking her for months. The title page made her blood run cold. Target American Night Hunter, codename Ghost Female Operative. Subtitle, Phase 1 Intelligence Gathering complete. Phase 2 Eliminate Training Cadre in progress. Phase 3 Neutralize Ghost authorized. The final page showed a mission commander's signature. Cyrillic letters that Maya recognized even before the English translation beneath V. Konstantin Colonel GRU Spetsnaz Return. Maya's hands didn't shake, but something cold settled in her chest. A name from Patterson's past, a ghost from the Cold War, a legend that was supposed to be dead. You know this name, Cross said. Not a question. Victor Constantine. Maya's voice was steady. My mentor spent 15 years hunting him during the Cold War. Patterson's White Whale, the Soviets' best night operative, 300-plus kills across Europe, disappeared after the Soviet Union collapsed in '91. We thought he died. She looked at Cross, at Hayes, at the dossier that showed her tactics, her equipment, her patterns. All of it studied, analyzed, prepared for. This wasn't a random ambush, Chief. These 10 snipers were bait. Constantine has been studying me, learning how I operate, and now she flipped to Phase 2, saw the list of names. 12 operators she'd personally trained in night warfare tactics, all of them marked as targets. Now he's coming for everyone I've trained. Cross pulled out his radio. I need to get this to command immediately. But before he could key the mic, Maya's encrypted satellite phone buzzed. Patterson, calling from Fort Bragg, from his hospital bed where cancer was eating him alive. She answered. Ghost. Patterson's voice was rough, weak, but still carried authority. Maya, I've been monitoring your encrypted traffic. I saw the name Constantine in your last transmission. He's alive, Maya said, and he's been hunting me, studying me. The 10 snipers tonight were just intelligence gathering for him. A long pause. Patterson's breathing was labored, wet. The cancer was winning. Victor Constantine was my equal, Maya, maybe better. For 15 years, we hunted each other across Europe, and neither of us ever landed a killing shot. He's got 35 more years of experience now, 35 years of hate and skill and cunning. Then it's time I met him, Maya said. He'll kill you. Or I'll kill him. Either way this ends. She looked at the dossier, at Phase 2 listing 12 of her students as targets. He's not just hunting me anymore, Ghost. He's hunting everyone I've trained, everyone you taught me to create. If we don't stop him, he'll destroy everything we've built. Patterson was quiet. Maya could hear machines beeping in the background, medical equipment keeping him alive. Then I taught you too well, Patterson finally said, because you're right. This needs to end, and you're the only one who can end it. A rattling breath. But Maya, don't hunt him for revenge. Don't hunt him to prove you're better. Hunt him because he threatens good people trying to do good work. Hunt him as a guardian, not a killer. I understand, Ghost. I know you do. That's why I trained you. That's why you'll beat him. Another breath. Now go. Save your students. Finish what I started 40 years ago. Show Constantine that the night belongs to Guardians now, not ghosts from the Cold War. Guardians. The line went dead. Maya stood in the Afghan darkness surrounded by the bodies of 10 professional snipers she'd eliminated in 4 hours. Held a dossier showing that a Soviet legend was hunting her and everyone she'd trained. Knew that Phase 2 was already in motion. Chief Cross was watching her, waiting for orders even though she technically wasn't in his chain of command. What do you need from us, Sergeant? Maya looked at him. This man who'd fought in Desert Storm, who'd seen Black Hawk Down, who understood what it meant when ghosts from old wars came back to haunt the living. I need transport to Fort Bragg immediately, and I need you to trust that what happens next is necessary. Cross nodded. Consider it done. As they moved toward the extraction point, Maya looked back one last time at the valley where she'd made 10 impossible shots, where she'd saved 7 SEALs from an ambush meant to study her tactics. Constantine thought he was the hunter, thought his 40 years of experience and Cold War legacy made him superior, thought Phase 1 was complete, and he understood how Maya operated. He was wrong. because Patterson hadn't just taught Maya how to hunt. He'd taught her how to think, how to adapt, how to become something more than just a skilled shooter. He'd taught her to be a guardian. And guardians didn't run from threats. They eliminated them. Phase 2 was in motion. 12 of her students were in danger. Time to show Victor Constantine what happened when Soviet ghosts came after American guardians. The night belonged to her now, and she was just getting started. 48 hours after Maya eliminated 10 enemy snipers in the Afghan mountains, she stood in a classified briefing room at Bagram Airfield and learned that Victor Constantine wasn't just alive. He was winning. Colonel Sarah Mitchell stood at the head of the room. 58 years old career intelligence officer, a woman who'd spent 3 decades reading classified reports and rarely showed emotion. She was showing it now. Staff Sergeant Reeves, what we're about to discuss doesn't leave this room. Mitchell gestured to the screen behind her. The 10 snipers you eliminated 3 nights ago were part of a larger network, much larger. The screen flickered, showed surveillance photos, intelligence reports, a web of connections that stretched across 3 continents. 18 operatives, Mitchell continued, all former military, Russian, Georgian, Ukrainian, Chechen, all trained to the same standard, all operating under the same command structure. She paused, all trained by Victor Constantine. Chief Cross sat forward in his chair. He'd been in briefings like this before, back in the 90s when Soviet advisors were turning up in places they shouldn't be, training people who shouldn't have had access to that level of skill. We thought Constantine died in '91, Cross said, when the Soviet Union collapsed. So did we. Mitchell pulled up another file, grainy photos from the Cold War, a younger Constantine in Spetsnaz uniform, then later photos, desert environments, urban warfare. The face older, but the eyes the same, cold, calculating, patient. He didn't die, he adapted, went private. For 32 years, he's been training enemy forces, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, anywhere someone would pay for his expertise. She looked directly at Maya. And for the past 6 months, he's been studying you. Maya's jaw tightened. She'd known Constantine had her dossier, but 6 months of surveillance was more than just preparation. That was obsession. Mitchell continued, the 10 operatives you killed were what we're calling the beta cell. Their mission wasn't to kill your SEAL team. It was to observe your tactics, study your methods, document your capabilities. She pulled up the dossier they'd recovered. Pages of notes in Russian and English, technical analysis of Maya's shooting positions, mathematical models of her decision-making process, psychological profiles. They sacrificed 10 trained operatives just to learn how you work, Mitchell said. That's how seriously Constantine takes you as a threat. Or as a target, Cross added quietly. Both. Mitchell pulled up new intelligence. We've intercepted communications. Constantine has moved to phase 2. The Alpha Cell, 80 operatives, better trained, better equipped, and their mission isn't observation. The screen showed 12 photographs, all American military personnel, all faces Maya recognized instantly because she'd trained every single one of them. Her students, operators she'd personally taught night warfare tactics over the past 2 years. Rangers, SEALs, Marines, Delta. The next generation of night hunters she was creating to carry Patterson's legacy forward. These 12 operators are stationed at 3 locations, Mitchell said. 4 at Fort Bragg running training cycles. 3 at Quantico teaching reconnaissance courses. 5 currently deployed with a joint task force in Syria. She met Maya's eyes. Constantine's Alpha Cell is targeting all 3 locations simultaneously. Estimated time to strike 48 to 72 hours. The room went silent, everyone understanding what that meant. Constantine wasn't just hunting Maya. He was destroying her legacy, killing everyone she'd trained, making sure Patterson's methods died with them. Ryan Hayes spoke up. Colonel, we pull them in. Defensive posture, concentrate forces. That's exactly what Constantine wants, Maya said. Her voice was quiet but carried authority that stopped the conversation. Gather them in one location, easier to hit. One strike kills everyone instead of him splitting his forces across 3 targets. Then what do you suggest, Sergeant? Mitchell asked. Maya stood, walked to the screen. Study the intelligence with the same focus she used to study terrain before a shot. We go offensive, draw him out, use me as bait. Cross shook his head. That's suicide. You'd be walking into a trap. I'd be setting a trap, Maya corrected. Constantine thinks he understands how I operate. He spent 6 months studying me. 10 of his people died gathering that intelligence. He's confident now, thinks he knows my patterns. She turned to face the room. So we break those patterns, give him something he doesn't expect. And when he commits his forces, we eliminate them. And if it doesn't work, Mitchell asked, then 12 of my students die. And Constantine moves on to phase 3, which I'm guessing means coming after me directly. Maya's voice didn't waver. Either way, this ends now. On our terms, not his. Mitchell studied her for a long moment, then nodded. I'll authorize a tactical operation. You'll have full support. But Sergeant Reeves, this goes wrong. It's on both of us. Understood, ma'am. As the briefing broke up, Cross approached Maya. You know this is what he wants. You aggressive, emotional, making mistakes because you're trying to protect your people. I know, Maya said. That's why I'm not going in emotional. I'm going in with a plan and the best tactical advisor in the business. Who? Maya pulled out her satellite phone. The man who hunted Constantine for 15 years and lived to tell about it. 12 hours later, a military medical transport landed at Bagram. Against every doctor's order, against all common sense and regulation, Sergeant Major William Patterson stepped off that aircraft. He was 65 years old, weighed maybe 130 pounds. Moved like every step cost him. Terminal lung cancer was eating him from the inside out. By all rights, he should have been in a hospital bed waiting to die. Instead, he was in Afghanistan about to advise on a tactical operation against the one enemy who'd ever been his equal. Cross watched Patterson shuffle across the tarmac and felt something he hadn't felt since Somalia. That bone-deep certainty that he was in the presence of someone truly exceptional. Someone who'd transcended normal human limits through pure force of will. Sergeant Major Patterson, Cross saluted. Chief Daniel Cross, SEAL Team 7. It's an honor, sir. Patterson returned the salute with a hand that shook slightly, but his eyes were clear, sharp, missing nothing. Chief Cross, Maya's told me about you. Desert Storm and Somalia veteran. You understand what we're up against. A ghost from the Cold War who wants to kill everyone Maya's ever trained, Cross said bluntly. Not just kill, Patterson corrected. Destroy. There's a difference. Constantine isn't hunting for money anymore. This is personal. This is about proving he was always better than me. And the way he does that is by destroying my legacy. He looked toward the operations building where Maya was planning. She's my legacy. The students she's trained are my legacy. He wants to erase all of it. Make sure Patterson's methods die with Patterson. He doesn't know Maya like you do, Cross said. Patterson smiled. It made his gaunt face look almost skeletal. No, he doesn't. He thinks she's me with better technology. He's wrong. She's better than I ever was, because she understands something I took 40 years to learn. He started walking toward the ops building. You can't beat the darkness by becoming darkness. You beat it by being the light. Inside the Tactical Operations Center, Maya had assembled her team. Cross and 4 of his SEALs, including Ryan Hayes, 3 Army Rangers who trained under her, 2 Marine Scout snipers, 12 operators total, plus Patterson as advisor. Intelligence has located Constantine's alpha cell, Maya said, pulling up satellite imagery. Mountain Valley 90 kilometers northwest. 8 operatives in prepared positions. Same terrain profile as where we engaged the beta cell. He's using familiar ground, Patterson observed. Classic Soviet doctrine. Control the terrain, force the enemy to come to you. That's exactly what we're going to do, Maya said, but not the way he expects. She outlined the plan. Split into 4 teams of 3. Insert at different landing zones surrounding the target area. Create a perimeter. Force the alpha cell to defend from multiple directions instead of picking off a single advancing force. Constantine thinks I hunt from elevation, Maya explained. Every shot I took 3 nights ago was from high ground. That's in his intelligence reports. So he'll expect me to position high, set up his defenses accordingly. She smiled. It was the same smile Patterson used to wear when he was about to do something no Soviet planner would anticipate. I'm going low. Valley floor. right into his expected kill zone. While you're all creating pressure from the ridges, I'll be eliminating his people from the one direction he won't expect. Cross studied the plan. It was aggressive, dangerous, required perfect timing and coordination. The kind of operation that got people killed if anything went wrong. It was also brilliant. When do we insert, he asked. 2200 hours, 6 hours from now. Maya looked at each operator in turn. I trained most of you. You know my methods, but tonight forget everything I taught you about my patterns. Tonight we're doing something Constantine can't predict. We're adapting, and adaptation beats preparation every single time. The next 4 hours were a blur of preparation, weapons checks, communications tests, route planning. Patterson sat in the corner of the operations center watching Maya work, watching her brief operators, watching her transform from the young woman he'd trained into the leader those operators needed. Cross approached him during a lull. Sergeant Major, can I ask you something? Shoot, Chief. You hunted Constantine for 15 years, never killed him, never even wounded him. What makes you think Maya can do what you couldn't? Patterson was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft but certain. Because I was hunting for the wrong reasons, Chief. I hunted Constantine because I wanted to prove I was better. Wanted to beat the best. It was about ego, about legacy, about pride. He looked at Maya across the room. Maya isn't hunting for any of those reasons. She's hunting because 12 of her students are in danger. Because good people need protection. That clarity of purpose. That's what makes her dangerous. More dangerous than I ever was. You really believe that? I trained her, Chief. I know what she's capable of. And I know she's already better than me because she learned the lesson that took me 4 decades to understand. Patterson's voice dropped to barely a whisper. The night doesn't belong to the hunter with the most kills. It belongs to the guardian with the clearest purpose. At 2200 hours, 4 helicopters lifted off from Bagram. Each carried 1 team, each headed to a different insertion point surrounding the target valley. Maya rode with Cross's team. Patterson stayed at the operations center monitoring communications, providing guidance, being the ghost in the machine. The flight took 37 minutes. As they approached the landing zone, Maya ran final equipment checks. SR-25 rifle, Patterson's vintage scope mounted above her modern optics, 160 rounds of subsonic ammunition, night vision and thermal fusion system, electromagnetic detection gear. Everything she'd used 3 nights ago to kill 10 snipers. Everything Constantine knew about from the intelligence his beta cell had gathered. That's why tonight would be different. The helicopter flared, touched down. Maya's team sprinted into the darkness, and the bird was gone 15 seconds later. 60 seconds after that, 4 teams confirmed safe insertion. Guardian teams, this is Overwatch. Maya's voice was steady on the encrypted channel. Move to assigned positions. Maintain communications discipline. Remember your training. Trust your equipment. Trust each other. They moved through mountain darkness toward the target valley. Maya's team approached from the south, Cross and Ryan beside her. 1 other SEAL providing rear security, professional, silent, efficient. 90 minutes after insertion, all 4 teams were in position surrounding the valley. Maya could see the thermal signatures on her display. 8 enemy operatives positioned exactly where intelligence predicted. Ridgelines, high ground, overlapping fields of fire, perfect defensive positions if your enemy came from expected directions. All teams, this is Overwatch. I have 8 thermal signatures confirmed. Holding positions. Patterson's voice crackled in her ear on the private channel. Maya, something's wrong. Those positions are too visible, too obvious. She'd been thinking the same thing. Like they want us to see them. Like they're bait, Patterson confirmed. Check for secondary positions. Constantine never commits all his forces to the visible fight. Maya switched her thermal display to maximum sensitivity, scanned the ridge lines more carefully. And there, barely visible, heat signatures that were slightly different from ambient rock temperature. Not in the obvious defensive positions, but behind them. Waiting. Not 8 enemies, 16. Constantine split his alpha cell into 2 elements. 8 positioned as visible bait, 8 more hidden behind them as the killing force. All 16 from his remaining network. All teams aboard approach. Maya's voice cut through the radio. Thermal signatures behind visible positions. This is The night exploded with gunfire. Muzzle flashes erupted from positions that hadn't existed seconds ago. The real Alpha Cell revealing themselves now that American forces were committed, ambushing the ambushers. Cross's SEAL team took immediate fire. Cross went down hard, dragging himself behind cover. Ryan returned fire muzzle brake, throwing flame into the darkness. Team 2, the Rangers on the eastern ridge, reported 2 wounded within the first 30 seconds. Team 3 Marines to the north were pinned down by coordinated suppressing fire. Only Team 4 positioned to the west had cover and were laying down supporting fire. In less than a minute, the tactical advantage had evaporated. Constantine had predicted Maya's countermove, had positioned his forces to exploit it. Now 16 highly trained operatives had 12 American operators pinned down in a kill zone. All teams fall back to secondary positions, Maya ordered. Team 4 provide covering fire. Teams 1, 2, 3 disengage and relocate. But Cross wasn't moving. He'd taken a round through his plate carrier. Trauma plate had stopped penetration, but the kinetic impact had cracked ribs, maybe collapsed a lung. He was breathing in short, sharp gasps. Ryan was trying to pull him to better cover while returning fire with his rifle in one hand. Not enough. The enemy had them bracketed, had their position marked. It was only a matter of time. Maya made a decision that Patterson had been training her for since that first night 7 years ago. The decision that separated hunters from guardians. She broke cover, sprinted toward Cross's position, drew enemy fire deliberately to give Ryan time to drag Cross to safety. Rounds impacted all around her. She felt one tug at her ghillie netting, felt another crack past her ear so close she could feel the pressure wave. But she was moving, serpentine pattern, unpredictable, and she reached Cross's position, somehow still alive. "Chief, stay down." She grabbed his drag handle. Ryan had him from the other side. Together, they pulled him back 15 meters to a rocky depression that provided cover from multiple angles. "Overwatch, this is Team 2. The Ranger team leader's voice was tight with stress. "We've got 3 wounded. Can't disengage. Request immediate support." Maya looked at Cross, at Ryan, at the tactical situation falling apart in real time. Then she looked at her rifle, at Patterson's vintage scope mounted above modern optics, at the equipment and training that had made her the most effective night hunter in the American military. Patterson's voice came through her earpiece. "Private channel, just for her. Maya, listen to me. You can't save everyone, not tonight, not against 16 professionals in prepared positions. You need to extract, regroup, fight another day. 12 of my students are still in danger," she said quietly. "If we run, Constantine moves to hit them at their bases. Fort Bragg, Quantico, Syria. We're out of time." "Then what's the play?" Maya checked her ammunition. 160 rounds, 16 enemies. Math that didn't work if she tried to fight them all simultaneously. But she didn't have to fight them all at once. She just had to make them think she was. "Ghost, I need you to coordinate defensive positions for all teams. Keep them alive. Keep them fighting. I'm going dark for the next 30 minutes. Going dark where? Into the valley, into their kill zone, where they'll never expect me." She looked at Ryan. "Hayes, you're in tactical command of Team 1. Get the chief stabilized and hold his position. Do not advance. Do not retreat. Just hold." Ryan's eyes were wide. "Ma'am, you can't go in there alone. That's suicide." "Well," Maya met his gaze. "It's not suicide if they don't know I'm there. And they won't, because Constantine thinks he knows how I operate. He's wrong." She moved before anyone could argue, slipped into the darkness, became a ghost. The valley floor was the last place anyone would position themselves during a firefight. It was the kill zone, the place where bullets converged, where every elevated position had clear lines of fire, which made it perfect. Maya moved through that darkness like water, used every depression, every rock, every shadow. Her night vision showed her the terrain in perfect clarity, showed her the muzzle flashes above, showed her exactly where Constantine's people were positioned. They were focused outward, focused on the American teams on the ridges, never thinking to look down, never considering that someone would be insane enough to infiltrate through the kill zone itself. That's what Patterson had taught her. The enemy can't defend against what they can't conceive. And Constantine, for all his experience and skill, thought in Soviet doctrine. Thought in terms of elevation and overlapping fields of fire. Thought in terms of the tactics that had made him legendary 40 years ago. He didn't think like a guardian, didn't understand that sometimes you had to go into the worst possible position to achieve the mission. Maya's first target was 420 meters northwest, part of a three-man cell providing suppressing fire on Team Three's position. Shooter-spotter security man, classic Soviet doctrine. The security man was focused on the ridgeline where Team 3 was pinned down. Never looked down into the valley, never considered threats from below. Maya's shot was at an upward angle, 340 meters at 22 degrees of elevation. She compensated for the geometry, for gravity working differently on an ascending bullet, for wind that flowed differently at valley floor level versus ridge level. The security man dropped without a sound. His partners didn't notice for almost 10 seconds. When they did, confusion rippled through their coordination. Where had the shot come from? All American forces were accounted for on the ridges. Who was in the valley? Maya relocated immediately. 30 meters east. New position, new angle. The spotter was scanning with thermal binoculars trying to locate the threat, trying to find a heat signature that shouldn't exist. But Maya had been trained by a man who'd hunted Spetsnaz for 15 years. She knew how to mask thermal output, knew how to blend with terrain, knew how to become invisible to the very technology that was supposed to make invisibility impossible. She fired. The spotter dropped. The shooter realized he was alone, exposed. He tried to relocate, but Maya tracked him through her fusion optics, watched him move, calculated his new position before he reached it, fired into the space he was running toward. He arrived at the same time as her bullet, fell mid-stride, 3 down. Patterson's voice crackled in her ear. Maya, I'm tracking your shots through team positions. You're in the valley floor. What the hell are you doing, hunting from the one place they won't expect? That's insane. That's why it's working. She moved to her next position, could hear the confusion rippling through enemy communications. Their carefully planned ambush was fracturing. Someone was killing them from an impossible position, and they couldn't locate the threat. Second cell, 2-man team, both using VSS Ventura's rifles with integrated suppressors. Position 580 meters east. They were disciplined. Good. When their comrades went down, they didn't panic. They went to ground, made themselves small, started scanning systematically, but they were scanning the wrong places, looking for threats at their elevation, looking for American teams they knew were on the ridges, not looking down. Maya found the weak point in their positioning, a gap in the rocks where one operator's thermal signature was partially visible. Not his whole body, just his heat blooming from his rifle barrel. The warmth of recently fired shots making the weapon glow slightly brighter than ambient temperature. She aimed at that thermal bloom, knew that 6 inches behind it would be hands, 12 inches behind it would be a face pressed to a scope. She fired. The thermal signature collapsed. The second operator reacted professionally, didn't break cover, didn't panic, just went completely dark, turned off his thermal optics, stopped moving, made himself as cold and invisible as possible. Maya waited. Patience. Patterson's voice in her memory. Everyone makes mistakes eventually. Everyone's body betrays them. 12 minutes passed. The enemy sniper remained perfectly still. Professional discipline. The kind of patience that came from years of training. Then his radio crackled. Someone on his team asking for status. He had to respond. Had to key his transmit button. That electromagnetic pulse lit up Maya's detection equipment like a flare. Triangulated his position instantly. She fired into the darkness at coordinates provided by technology the Soviets never had when Patterson was hunting them. 5 down. The remaining 11 operatives were starting to understand they weren't the hunters anymore. They were the prey. Someone was inside their kill zone, inside their carefully prepared ambush, turning their own tactics against them. Maya heard orders being given in Russian over captured radio frequencies. Regroup, consolidate, defend. They were going defensive. Exactly what she needed. All Guardian teams, she transmitted. Enemy is consolidating positions. I'm marking targets. On my signal, concentrated fire on marked positions. Patterson coordinated from the operations center, linked all 4 American teams. created a firing solution that would hit enemy positions from multiple angles simultaneously. Guardian teams stand by. Overwatch is marking targets. Maya moved through the valley, used her laser designator to paint targets for the American teams. Each enemy position, each consolidated defensive location, all of it visible now that they'd stopped thinking about ambush and started thinking about survival. All targets marked, Maya transmitted. Fire on my signal. 3, 2, 1. Execute. The ridgelines erupted with coordinated gunfire. 12 American operators firing simultaneously at 11 enemy positions. Not random suppressing fire, precise, targeted, coordinated. The enemy ambushers caught in their defensive positions took casualties immediately. 3 more down in the first volley. Maya used the chaos to close distance, moved to within 300 meters of the nearest enemy cell, a 3-man team that had taken cover behind a large boulder formation. They thought they were safe, thought the boulder protected them from the American teams on the ridges. They weren't thinking about the threat from below. Maya's shots came from an angle they'd never considered, threading between rocks, finding flesh. 3 more down in rapid succession. 11 enemies had become 5 in less than 3 minutes, and those 5 were starting to break, starting to run. Fatal mistake. Movement created thermal signatures. Heat blooms against cool rocks. Targets for Maya's rifle and the American teams coordinating fire from the ridges. 2 more fell trying to relocate to better positions. 3 remaining, and all of them professionals, and all of them realizing they'd been outmaneuvered by someone better. All of them making the calculation that survival meant extraction. They broke contact, tried to disengage, tried to escape into the mountains. But Maya was already moving to cut off their retreat routes, and Patterson was directing the American teams to block every exit vector. The first enemy operative ran directly into Team 4's position. The Marines took him down before he could return fire. The second tried to hide, went to ground in a position that provided good cover but no escape routes, waited for Maya to pass by so he could take her from behind. But Maya had been trained by a man who knew every Spetsnaz tactic, every Soviet doctrine, every trick that Russian special forces had developed over 40 years of Cold War operations. She didn't pass by his position. She came at it from the one angle he couldn't defend, fired through a narrow gap he didn't know existed. 15 down, 1 remaining. Maya tracked him through thermal imaging, watched him move. He was good. Used terrain expertly, masked his thermal signature, made himself hard to follow. But he made one mistake. He moved toward the primary exfiltration point, the location where Konstantin would have planned an escape helicopter. And Maya had studied the terrain, knew exactly where that location had to be. She beat him there by 4 minutes, positioned herself in shadows, waited with the patience Patterson had drilled into her over 6 months of training. When the last enemy operative arrived, breathing hard, thinking he'd made it to safety, Maya's voice cut through the darkness. "Drop your weapon." He spun, tried to bring his rifle up. Fast, professional, not fast enough. Maya's shot took him in the shoulder, non-lethal, deliberate. She needed him alive. He went down, weapon clattering away across rocks. Maya moved in quickly, kicked the rifle out of reach, covered him with her SR-25. "Phase 2, she said quietly. "Tell me where Constantine is hitting my students." "Fort Bragg, Quantico, Syria. All 3. The operative said nothing, just stared at her with hatred and pain. "You know what happens next," Maya continued. "Medical teams will keep you alive. Intelligence officers will ask questions. Eventually you'll talk. Everyone talks. I'm just giving you the chance to talk now, before your teammates all died for nothing." Still nothing. Then Patterson's voice in her earpiece. "Maya, we've got satellite imagery coming through. You need to see this." She kept her rifle trained on the wounded operative while checking her tactical display. Patterson sent through images captured from surveillance satellites in real time. Fort Bragg, training facility, fire trucks and medical responders, bodies being carried out on stretchers. Quantico, rifle range, same scene, fire, casualties, case, Syria, forward operating base, medics working on wounded soldiers in triage. All 3 locations. All 3 had been hit simultaneously while Maya's teams were engaged with the 16 operatives in Afghanistan. "Oh God," Maya's voice went hollow. It was all a distraction. The 16 operatives, the ambush, Phase 2 wasn't about killing us. It was about keeping us busy while the real attack happened. The wounded operative smiled through his pain. You're good. Better than Constantine expected. But he's better. He always wins. Always. Maya's hands didn't shake, but something cold settled in her chest. How many of her students were dead? How many had she failed? Guardian teams, she transmitted. Secure the perimeter. We have one prisoner for interrogation. I need immediate satellite communications with Fort Bragg, Quantico, and Syria Task Force. The next 30 minutes were a nightmare. Status reports coming in from all 3 locations. Fort Bragg, 4 dead, 2 missing. All of Maya's trainees. Attack during night training exercise by infiltrators using thermal optics and subsonic weapons. Professional hit, in and out before base security could respond. Quantico 2 instructors dead. Both had been teaching Maya's tactics to reconnaissance students. Shot from long range during an early morning jog. Snipers never located. Syria 3 wounded, 1 dead. Attacked during patrol by enemy using night vision and coordinated tactics. The dead soldier was Maya's best student, a young ranger she'd personally mentored for 6 months. 7 of her 12 students dead. 2 missing, presumed dead. 3 wounded. Maya sat in the darkness of the Afghan mountains, surrounded by the bodies of 15 enemy operatives she'd helped eliminate. A tactical victory. Perfect execution. Not a single American casualty during their operation. But while they'd been fighting here, Constantine had been killing there, destroying her legacy, proving that no matter how good she was, he was better, smarter, more experienced, more willing to sacrifice his own people as pawns in a larger game. Chief Cross approached. His ribs were taped, moving hurt, but he was walking. Sergeant, we need to get you back to base. Prisoner transport is inbound. 15 enemy KIA confirmed. Your tactics saved this operation. My tactics got 7 of my students killed, Maya said quietly. Your tactics weren't the problem. Constantine outmaneuvered everyone. Yeah, command, intelligence, all of us. Cross sat down next to her with a grunt of pain. I've been fighting since Desert Storm. 34 years. I've seen good plans fail because the enemy was better. This is one of those times. Maya looked at the tactical display still showing footage from Fort Bragg. Young soldiers being carried out in body bags. Operators she'd trained. People who'd trusted her to prepare them for night warfare. People who'd died while she was too far away to help. Patterson's voice came through her earpiece. Private channel. Maya, I'm looking at the same footage you are. I know what you're thinking. This isn't your fault. 7 dead ghosts. 7. 7 brave operators who died in combat. Not because you failed them, because Constantine is willing to sacrifice anything to win. That's not strength. That's desperation. Patterson's voice was weak, the cancer and stress taking their toll. He sacrificed 16 of his own people tonight just to distract you. That's not the move of someone who's winning. That's the move of someone who knows he's running out of time. What do I do? Maya asked. Not as a soldier, as a student asking her teacher. You finish this, not for revenge, not to prove you're better, but because 5 of your students are still alive, because Constantine made this personal, and because sometimes the only way to stop a predator is to become what he fears most. What's that? Something he can't predict, can't outmaneuver, can't beat through experience or tactics. Patterson paused, his breathing rattled. He's spent 40 years being the hunter. Time to show him what it's like to be prey. Maya stood, checked her rifle, her ammunition, her equipment, everything she'd used to kill 15 enemy operatives tonight while Constantine killed 7 of her students somewhere else. The math was brutal. The reality was clear. Constantine was better at this game than she was, more experienced, more willing to sacrifice, more cunning. But he'd made one mistake. He'd made it personal. And personal meant Maya wouldn't stop, wouldn't quit, wouldn't rest until this was finished. Chief, she said to Cross, I need transport back to base, and I need every piece of intelligence we have on Constantine's location. What are you planning, Sergeant? Maya looked at the mountains, at the darkness that had been her domain for 7 years, at the night that Patterson had taught her to own. Phase 3, she said. Constantine invited me to finish this. Face to face. Hunter versus Hunter. She chambered around. Time to accept his invitation. As the video ended, Patterson's voice came through Maya's earpiece. Weak, labored, but with an edge she'd never heard before. Maya, that listening post, the coordinates Constantine sent. What about it, Ghost? A long pause, machines beeping in the background. 1985. That's where Constantine and I met, where we both missed, where we talked for 1 hour as friends before the war separated us again. Patterson's breathing rattled. He's not just inviting you to a fight, he's inviting you to where it all began, where he and I became equals, where our rivalry was born. Another pause. Maya, he's dying too. The intelligence file I just received. Constantine has stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months prognosis. Same timeline as me. Maya's blood ran cold. He's dying. This isn't about winning anymore. It's about going out on his terms, taking my legacy with him before cancer takes him. It's a suicide mission, Maya, for both of you. She looked at the frozen frame of Constantine on screen, his gaunt face, the way he stood. Now that Patterson mentioned it, she could see it. The same hollowed cheeks, the same weight loss, the same terminal look. Then we're both racing death, Maya said quietly. The question is, who reaches the finish line first? The question, Patterson corrected, is whether either of you survives to cross it. The coordinates came through encrypted channels 48 hours after Constantine killed 7 of Maya's students. A simple message. No threats, no demands, just numbers and a time. Grid reference 472, 72 hours. Come alone. Attached to the message was video footage. 3 of Maya's trainees, the ones missing from Fort Bragg, bound and kneeling in darkness. All 3 alive but beaten. Behind them stood a figure Maya had only seen in Cold War photographs. Victor Constantine, 68 years old, gray hair, weathered face, eyes like winter ice. Maya Reeves, he said in accented English. Patterson's masterwork. For 38 years, your teacher and I hunted each other. Neither of us ever landed the killing shot. We were equals, perfect balance. He placed a hand on one hostage's shoulder, but he got cancer, retired, never faced me again. So now I face his legacy instead. You have 72 hours. Come alone to these coordinates. Prove you're worthy of the ghost name, or I kill these 3 slowly and upload the videos for Patterson to watch as he dies. The video ended. Maya sat in the operations center at Bagram and felt something cold settle in her chest. Not fear, not rage, just absolute clarity. This ended in 72 hours, one way or another. Colonel Mitchell stood across the briefing table. Sergeant Reeves, I cannot authorize a solo operation against a fortified position. It's suicide. Then don't authorize it, ma'am. Maya's voice was steady. Court-martial me after I bring my people home. Maya, Chief Cross stepped forward. His ribs were still taped from the ambush 3 days ago. Constantine has had months to prepare that location. He knows you're coming. He'll have every advantage. High ground, prepared positions, overlapping fields of fire. You walk in there alone and you die. Maybe. Maya pulled up satellite imagery of the coordinates. An abandoned Soviet listening post from the Cold War. Mountain stronghold. Single approach. Perfect defensive position. But he said, come alone. I don't. He kills my people and disappears. Continues hunting the 5 students I have left across the globe. This is the only chance to end it. Ryan Hayes spoke up. The young SEAL had barely left Maya's side since the ambush. Ma'am, with respect, he said, come alone. Didn't say anything about accidentally running into a lost SEAL patrol in the same area. Maya allowed herself a small smile. Maintain perimeter at 2 kilometers, Hayes. When the shooting starts, secure the exits. But inside that stronghold, she met his eyes. That's between me and Constantine. This is personal. Has been since he killed my students. Since he challenged Patterson's legacy. Some fights you take alone. Patterson's voice crackled through the satellite phone. He was back at Fort Bragg now, too weak to travel again. Dying in a hospital bed while his student prepared to face his greatest enemy. Maya, you need to understand something about Constantine. He's not just trying to kill you. He's trying to prove something. To me, to himself, to everyone who thought Soviet methods were inferior. His breathing was labored, wet. For 40 years he's lived knowing I was the one who got away, the one he couldn't kill, the one who proved American snipers could beat Soviet Spetsnaz at their own game. Your existence proves it again. My methods pass to you being effective. He can't stand it. So what's his weakness? Maya asked. Pride, same as mine was. He needs to win, needs to prove he's superior. That need will make him take risks, make him show himself when he should stay hidden. Patterson coughed, long and rattling. But Maya, listen to me. Don't go there trying to beat him at his game. Don't try to out-snipe him. Don't try to prove you're better. Go there to bring your people home. Let that purpose guide every decision. Purpose beats pride. Every time. I understand, Ghost. I know you do. That's why you're going to win. Another cough. One more thing. I'm having something delivered to Bagram. Equipment I've been saving. You'll need it. 6 hours later, a classified transport arrived with a single cargo container. Inside was a rifle case. When Maya opened it, she found a weapon that made her breath catch. A custom SR-25, built by Patterson himself over the course of 5 years. Every component hand-selected, every measurement precise to thousandths of an inch. The barrel was match-grade stainless steel. The trigger broke at exactly 2 pounds. The stock was adjustable for any shooting position. And mounted on top in a quick-release bracket was Patterson's original 1983 Marine scope. A note was taped to the stock in Patterson's handwriting. Carried me through 15 years hunting the best. Now it carries you through one night ending it. Make the shot I never could. Love, Ghost. Maya lifted the rifle. It felt like an extension of her body. Perfectly balanced. Perfectly weighted. This wasn't just equipment. This was Patterson's legacy made tangible. 40 years of knowledge and skill poured into steel and carbon fiber. She chambered around. The bolt moved like silk. The balance was perfect. This rifle wasn't just a weapon. It was a promise, a commitment, a final gift from teacher to student. Thank you, Ghost, she whispered. The insertion was at midnight, 72 hours exactly from when Konstantin's message had arrived. Maya went in alone. Chief Cross and his SEAL team inserted 2 kilometers out, established a perimeter, prepared to secure escape routes. But inside the perimeter, inside Konstantin's stronghold, Maya was on her own. The approach took 6 hours. Maya moved through mountain darkness with every skill Patterson had taught her. Silent, efficient, invisible. She covered 6 kilometers of hostile terrain without triggering a single sensor, without creating a single thermal signature that could be tracked. By the time she reached the outer perimeter of the Soviet listening post, dawn was 3 hours away. Perfect timing. Konstantin would be expecting her at dawn, expecting her to use low light for the final approach. She'd arrived early, disrupted his timeline, changed his plan. First rule Patterson had taught her: never let the enemy dictate tempo. The listening post was a Cold War relic, concrete bunker built into the mountainside, steel doors, reinforced walls, designed to withstand anything short of a direct nuclear strike. Around it, open ground, kill zones, perfect defensive position. Konstantin had chosen well. This was where he wanted the confrontation, where he had every advantage. Maya studied the terrain through her night vision, located 4 sentry positions, professional placement, overlapping coverage, Konstantin's remaining operatives, the best he had left after losing 16 in the ambush and 15 in the valley fight, 4 guards, then Konstantin himself inside, plus 3 hostages. Maya could take the guards from distance, could eliminate them one by one like she'd done dozens of times. But that would alert Konstantin, would give him time to kill the hostages, time to disappear. She needed to get inside, needed to reach him before he knew she was there. That meant going through the front door. Maya approached the main entrance at 0400 hours. The steel door was closed, locked, probably alarmed, definitely monitored. She stood in front of it, fully visible, made no attempt to hide, keyed her radio on an open frequency she knew Konstantin would be monitoring. I'm here, alone, like you asked. Let's finish this. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then the door opened with a hydraulic hiss. Lights came on inside, revealing a corridor, concrete walls, steel floor, no cover, perfect kill zone if Constantine wanted to shoot her as she entered. Maya walked in anyway, because that's what Guardians did. They walked into danger when people needed saving. The door closed behind her with a sound like a tomb ceiling. She was inside, committed. No retreat now. Welcome, Ghost's apprentice. Constantine's voice echoed from speakers mounted in the ceiling. You're early. I appreciate punctuality. Please proceed forward. My hospitality awaits. Maya moved through the corridor, her rifle up, night vision showing her the interior in perfect clarity. The bunker was exactly as Cold War blueprints indicated. Central operations room, side chambers, storage. All of it designed for a crew of 30 Soviet operators monitoring NATO communications. Now it housed one old Spetsnaz legend in his final confrontation. She found the hostages in the central room. Corporal Jackson, Petty Officer O'Brien, Staff Sergeant Williams. All three bound but alive, beaten but conscious. They looked up as Maya entered, relief flooding their faces. "Ma'am," Jackson whispered, "it's a trap. I know." Maya moved to cut their bonds. "Can you walk?" "Yes, ma'am," O'Brien said, "but the exits are locked. Electronic. He controls them from somewhere inside." Maya freed all three, handed O'Brien a sidearm from her kit. "Exit south. 2 kilometers out, friendly forces. Run and don't look back." "We're not leaving you," Williams said. "That's an order, Staff Sergeant. Your part is done. Mine is just beginning." Maya's voice carried command that made them move despite their protests. "You're the mission. Now complete it. Move." They moved, reluctantly, but they moved. Maya watched them disappear down the corridor toward the south exit, heard the door unlock electronically, heard it seal behind them. Now it was just her and Constantine, hunter and hunter, ghost versus ghost. Very noble, Constantine's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "Sacrificing yourself for your students. Patterson would be proud. Now come to the roof, where he and I met 38 years ago. Let's finish what we started then." Maya found the stairs, ascended, each step taking her higher into the bunker, higher toward the confrontation that had been building for 4 decades. Patterson versus Constantine. Old war, old grudges, old ghosts. But she wasn't fighting for old reasons, wasn't hunting for Patterson's revenge or Constantine's pride. She was here because 3 of her students had been hostages, because 5 more were still in danger, because Guardians didn't let predators operate unpunished. The roof access opened to mountain air. Dawn was approaching, sky turning from black to gray. In another hour, the sun would rise. For now, darkness still held. Constantine stood at the far end of the roof, old Soviet equipment scattered around, radio antennas, listening devices, all of it rusted and forgotten, like the war they represented. He was smaller than Maya expected, not physically imposing, just an old man in worn tactical gear. But his eyes, those eyes held 40 years of killing, 40 years of hunting, 40 years of being the best and knowing it. Maya Reeves. He studied her like a specimen. Finally, Patterson's masterwork. "I've watched you for 6 months, studied your tactics, learned your patterns. You're good. Better than he was at your age. Better than most will ever be." He smiled. "But not better than me. Never better than me." "I'm not here to prove I'm better," Maya said. Her rifle was slung. His was leaning against equipment 10 meters away. They were talking, not shooting, not yet. "I'm here because you killed my students, threatened my people. This ends tonight." "You're right, it does end tonight, but not the way you think." Constantine walked slowly along the roof, not threatening, just moving. "Let me tell you a story, Maya, about 2 young snipers, one American, one Soviet, both believing their system was superior, both hunting each other across a divided Germany." "I know the story," Maya said. "Patterson told me." "Did he tell you we were friends once before the politics, before the ideology?" Constantine's voice carried something like sadness. 1985. This very roof, we met by accident, both hunting the same target, Both arriving at the same time, we aimed at each other. We fired simultaneously. He gestured to a spot on the concrete. Both bullets hit right there, 6 inches from each other. We both missed. Only time either of us ever missed. Then what happened? We talked. For 1 hour, we sat on this roof and talked. As snipers, as professionals, not as enemies. We discussed wind reading, ballistics, the mathematics of impossible shots. Constantine's eyes grew distant. In that hour, Patterson was my friend, the only friend who understood what I did, what I was. Then why did you keep hunting him? Maya asked. Because when the sun rose, we remembered who we were, what we represented. He went back to being American. I went back to being Soviet, and the war continued. Constantine looked at her, but I never forgot that hour. Never forgot that we were equals, that despite everything we respected each other. If you respected him so much, why are you trying to destroy his legacy? Constantine's expression hardened. Because he got to retire, he got to grow old with honor, he got to die surrounded by respect and gratitude. The words came out sharp, bitter, while I had to hide, had to sell my skills to the highest bidder, had to watch my country collapse and my honor disappear. He won by living long enough to be remembered as hero. I lost by surviving into a world that forgot what I was. So this is about jealousy, Maya said, about wanting what he had. This is about proving that Soviet methods were never inferior, that I was never less than him. Constantine's voice rose. He trained you, passed his skills forward, created a legacy. I trained soldiers too, passed Soviet doctrine forward. But when my students died in your ambushes, when your tactics beat mine, it proved him right, proved Americans were better. I can't allow that. You're wrong, Maya said quietly. This isn't about American versus Soviet. This isn't about whose doctrine is superior. Patterson learned that 40 years too late. Don't make the same mistake. Then what is it about purpose? Maya met his eyes. Patterson hunted you for 15 years because of ego, because of pride, because he wanted to prove he was best. That's why he never beat you. You were equals in ego. She adjusted her stance slightly. But he learned something eventually. Learned that the night doesn't belong to the hunter with the most kills. It belongs to the guardian with the clearest purpose. Philosophical. Constantine's hand drifted toward his rifle. But philosophy doesn't stop bullets. Doesn't change the fact that I'm faster, more experienced, better trained. I've been doing this for 45 years. You've been doing it for 7. You can't win. I don't need to be better, Maya said. I just need to be right. Constantine grabbed his rifle. Fast, professional. 45 years of muscle memory. Brought it up, aimed, center mass on Maya, perfect shot. Any last words before I prove Soviet training superior? Maya didn't move, didn't flinch, just stood there with her rifle still slung. Yes, you're wrong about Patterson. He didn't retire because he was afraid of you. He retired because he found something worth more than hunting you. He found me, found purpose beyond pride. And that's why his legacy lives while yours dies here. Constantine's finger tightened on the trigger. Goodbye, Ghost's apprentice. The shot came from 900 meters away. It traveled through mountain air for 1.9 seconds, crossed wind that shifted 3 times during flight, compensated for temperature, for altitude, for the rotation of the Earth itself, for every variable that made long-range shooting as much art as mathematics. The bullet hit Constantine's rifle, shattered the scope, jerked the weapon from his hands with kinetic force that spun him sideways. He stumbled, fell. His rifle clattered across the concrete roof. Useless. Maya turned toward the source, knew before she looked what she'd see. 900 meters south, elevated ridge. In the gray pre-dawn light, barely visible, a figure supported by 2 men. Too weak to stand alone. Too weak to live much longer, but strong enough to make one more shot. Patterson. At the extraction point where he'd flown in against every regulation and doctor's order, where he'd positioned himself with his own custom rifle, where he'd waited for 6 hours in terminal agony for this exact moment, where he'd made the shot he'd spent 38 years preparing for. Through her scope, Maya saw him lower the rifle, saw the two medics supporting him ease him to the ground, saw him looking back at her across 900 meters of mountain terrain. Even at this distance, even through optics, she could see him smile. Constantine rolled onto his back, stared at the sky, understanding dawning. Patterson, he was here. He made the shot. 900 meters, Maya said. With terminal lung cancer, with collapsed lungs while dying, he made it because it wasn't about ego anymore. It wasn't about proving he was better. It was about protecting me. That's what you never understood. That's why you lost. Constantine started laughing, harsh, bitter, but genuine. 38 years. 38 years, and he finally got me. Not through superior skill, not through better tactics, he coughed, through love, through caring about something more than himself. He looked at Maya. I trained 63 operatives over 40 years. Not one would have made that shot for me. Not one cared enough. That's the difference between hunters and guardians, Maya said. Constantine closed his eyes. Tell Patterson he won. Not the rivalry, the bigger game. He figured out what mattered. I never did. Maya keyed her radio. Ghost target is neutralized. Mission complete. Hostages secure. Patterson's voice came back so weak it was barely audible. Good. Good girl. Knew you could. A long pause. Labored breathing. Maya, need you too. Need you. The words stopped. Just open channel. Just the sound of medics working. Of machines beeping frantically. Of someone dying 900 meters away. Maya ran, sprinted across the roof, down the stairs, out of the bunker, across open ground. 900 meters. All of it at full sprint with 50 pounds of gear. Cross and his team had secured the perimeter. Had Patterson on the ground, medics working. But Maya could see from 100 meters out it was too late. The exertion of making that shot. The stress on his failing body. It had been too much. She dropped to her knees beside him, grabbed his hand. Ghost, stay with me. Medevac is inbound. You're going to be fine. Patterson's eyes found hers. He was smiling despite the blood on his lips, despite the machines screaming that he was dying. Made the shot, 900 meters. Not bad for old man. Best shot I've ever seen, Maya said. Her voice broke. Thank you. Thank you for everything. Not everything. Patterson squeezed her hand with what little strength remained. Taught you how to hunt, but you taught yourself something better. What's that how to be guardian? His breathing was slowing, stopping. Not killer, guardian. That's legacy. Pass it forward. I will, I promise. Love you, daughter. I never had. Patterson's eyes stayed on hers. The night belongs to the guardians now. Tell them, tell everyone. His hand went slack. The machines flatlined. The medics worked frantically. But Maya knew Patterson was gone. He'd held on just long enough to make that impossible shot. Just long enough to save her one last time. Just long enough to pass the legacy forward completely. Then he'd let go. Maya sat in Afghan mountain darkness, holding the hand of the man who'd been more father than teacher. The man who'd taken a grief-stricken girl and turned her into something that mattered. The man who'd spent his last months on Earth making sure his knowledge didn't die with him. Chief Cross stood nearby, silent, respectful, understanding that some grief needed space. When Maya finally stood, the sun was rising, dawn breaking across mountains where so much had happened, where 10 snipers had died, where 16 more had fallen, where 7 of her students had been avenged, where Patterson had made his final shot, where the night gave way to light. 2 months later, Maya stood at Arlington National Cemetery in dress uniform. The morning was cold, gray, appropriate for burying legends. Patterson's casket rested on a caisson, flag draped, honored. Behind it, a formation of Marines in dress blues. Patterson's brothers, men who'd served with him, men who'd known him as ghost, as legend, as friend. The chapel was full. Officers from every branch, operators from every special forces unit, All of them here to honor a man who'd spent 40 years in shadows, who'd killed America's enemies from distances they never knew existed, who'd trained the next generation to do the same. Maya delivered the eulogy, her voice steady despite the grief, despite the weight of speaking for someone who'd changed her life so completely. Sergeant Major William Patterson taught me how to hunt in darkness, how to read wind, how to make impossible shots, how to become a ghost. She looked at the rows of faces, saw Chief's Cross, saw Ryan Hayes, saw Colonel Mitchell, saw the 3 hostages she'd rescued, saw the 5 surviving students from her original 12. All of them here, all of them alive because of what Patterson had taught. But more importantly, he taught me why to hunt, not for glory, not for revenge, not to prove superiority, but to protect those who can't protect themselves. He was the greatest night warrior America ever produced, not because of his 153 confirmed kills, but because his final shot at age 65, dying from cancer across 900 meters of mountain wind. Her voice caught. That shot wasn't about him. It was about saving me, about protecting his student, about being a guardian instead of just a hunter. That's what makes someone great. That's his legacy. The 21-gun salute cracked across Arlington. Taps played. The flag was folded with precision and ceremony, presented to Maya as next of kin, as daughter in all but blood. She accepted it with hands that didn't shake, held it against her chest, felt the weight of everything Patterson had given her, everything he'd taught her, everything he'd been. "Thank you, Ghost," she whispered, "for everything." 3 months later, Fort Bragg unveiled the Patterson Institute for Nocturnal Warfare, a dedicated training facility for special operations forces learning night combat tactics. State-of-the-art equipment, the best instructors, all of it built on Patterson's methods, all of it carrying his name forward. Maya, promoted to Chief Warrant Officer, stood at the entrance on opening day. 47 students waited inside. Rangers, SEALs, Marines, Delta, even 3 international students from allied nations. All of them here to learn what Patterson had spent a lifetime perfecting. In the main training room, mounted in a place of honor, was Patterson's original 1983 rifle scope, the one he'd carried through 15 years of hunting Spetsnaz, the one he'd given to Maya, the one that had seen the impossible shot that ended Constantine. Beside it, a plaque: "The night doesn't belong to the enemy. It belongs to whoever understands it best. And the person who understands it best is the one protecting something more valuable than their own ego. Be guardians, not hunters." Sergeant Major William Ghost Patterson, USMC 1958 to 2023. Maya stood before her first class, looked at the young faces, saw herself 7 years ago, angry, grieving, determined, saw the next generation of night warriors waiting to learn, waiting to carry the legacy forward. "Welcome to the Patterson Institute," she began. "I'm Chief Warrant Officer Maya Reeves. For the next 12 weeks, I'm going to teach you everything Sergeant Major Patterson taught me. How to hunt in darkness, how to read wind at night, how to make shots most people think are impossible, how to become ghosts." She walked to Patterson's scope, touched it gently. "But more importantly, and I'm going to teach you why we do this, why we operate in darkness while others sleep, why we put ourselves in danger." She turned back to face them. "We're not here to be hunters. We're here to be guardians. There's a difference. Hunters kill for ego, for pride, for proving their best. Guardians protect, serve, sacrifice. The night belongs to guardians now, and you're going to become them." Ryan Hayes stood beside her, now a lieutenant, her deputy instructor, her partner in passing Patterson's legacy forward. Together, they'd train these students. Together, they'd make sure Patterson's methods lived on. "Ma'am," one student raised her hand, a young woman, 24 years old, same age Maya had been when she'd knocked on Patterson's door. "My brother was killed in a night operation in Syria, sniper attack. They said there was nothing he could do, that the enemy owned the night. Is that true?" Maya met her eyes, saw the same grief, the same determination, the same need to make darkness into something that protected instead of killed. "No," Maya said firmly. "The enemy doesn't own the night. Nobody owns the night. It's neutral territory, and we're going to teach you how to make it yours, how to become what your brother needed, what my brother needed, what every soldier in darkness needs. We're going to make you into guardians of the night. Over the next year, the Patterson Institute graduated 127 operators. They deployed to every theater, every conflict, every dark corner where American forces operated. Enemy sniper effectiveness dropped 70% in regions where Patterson Institute graduates worked, not because they killed more, but because they protected better, because they understood that the mission wasn't racking up kill counts, it was bringing people home. Maya's own total reached 237 confirmed kills over 4 years, 82% in nocturnal operations, 0 friendly casualties while she provided overwatch. But she didn't measure success in bodies. She measured it in the operators she trained, the students she mentored, the legacy she carried forward. On the 1-year anniversary of Patterson's death, Maya visited his grave, brought flowers, sat on the cold ground beside the headstone, talked to him like he could hear, like he was still there guiding her. "Hey, Ghost, 47 students graduated this cycle. Best class yet. Hayes says you'd be proud." She smiled. "I know you would be. I can feel it every time we train someone new. Every time we pass forward what you taught me." The wind moved through Arlington's trees, cold November air, the same temperature as that night in Afghanistan when Patterson had made his final shot. "I miss you," Maya said quietly. "Miss your voice, miss your guidance, miss knowing you're just a phone call away when I need advice." She touched the headstone. "But I understand now what you were trying to teach me all along. It's not about the skills, not about the shots. It's about the purpose, about being something worth more than our kill counts, about protecting instead of just hunting." She stood, adjusted her uniform. 5 more students are starting next week, including Jackson's sister, the one whose brother died in Syria. She reminds me of myself 7 years ago, angry, determined, ready to become something that matters. Maya saluted Patterson's grave. "I'll train her right, Ghost. Train her like you trained me. Make her into a guardian." That's the legacy. That's what lives on. As Maya walked away, the sun was setting, darkness approaching. The time of day when Patterson had been most alive, when he'd operated, when he'd hunted, when he'd become the legend. But darkness didn't feel threatening anymore, didn't feel like enemy territory. It felt like home, like the place where guardians worked, where protection happened, where Patterson's legacy lived on through every operator who understood that the night belonged to those willing to stand watch in it. At the Patterson Institute, lights came on as dusk fell. Inside, Maya's students were training, learning night vision, studying ballistics, preparing for the darkness that would be their operating environment. Above the entrance, illuminated now in the fading light, the Institute's motto stood clear: "The night belongs to the guardians." Patterson had spent 40 years learning that lesson, had spent his final months teaching it, had made his final shot to prove it. Now 47 graduates carried it forward, soon to be 100, then 1,000. Each one trained in Patterson's methods, each one understanding that they weren't just snipers, they were guardians. The enemy still operated at night, still used thermal optics and advanced technology, still thought darkness gave them advantage. They were learning otherwise, learning that American forces had their own night hunters now, had guardians who understood darkness better than any technology could teach, who operated with purpose that beat pride every single time. Maya stood in the Institute's observation tower, watched her students train below, felt Patterson's presence in every lesson, in every technique, in every moment when someone learned to thread a bullet through impossible angles or read wind in total darkness. The night belonged to the guardians now, and she was raising an army of them. Patterson would be proud. She knew that with absolute certainty, knew it every time a student made an impossible shot, every time an operator she'd trained brought someone home safe, every time the legacy moved forward. "Thank you, Ghost," she whispered into the darkness, "for everything, for the training, for the knowledge, for teaching me what matters, for being the father I needed when I lost my brother, for making that final shot, for giving me purpose." The wind carried her words away into night, into the darkness where Patterson had spent a lifetime operating, where his legend lived on, where Guardians continued his work. The night belonged to them now, and it always would. Because that's what Patterson had taught. That's what Maya carried forward. That's what would never die, that as long as someone understood that protection mattered more than glory. That purpose beat pride. That Guardians were worth more than hunters. The darkness deepened. The students trained. The legacy continued. And somewhere in that night, Maya could have sworn she heard Patterson's voice one last time. Faint, distant, but clear. Good girl. Keep watch. The night belongs to the Guardians now. Make sure it always does. She would. She'd make sure. That was the promise. That was the legacy. That was what Patterson had died to protect. The night belonged to the Guardians, and Maya Reeves would make certain it stayed that way, one student at a time, one operation at a time, one impossible shot at a time, just like Ghost had taught her.